Hi there, and welcome to this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. Thanks for joining us on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we talk to the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting. Well, one of those really interesting folks is the better half of the Huntingtons. That would be Suzi Huntington, wife of Roy Huntington, our special assignments editor. Suzi is well known in her own right, and she's had a lot of adventures too. And when I found out she guarded the red carpet at the Oscar ceremony, I knew we had to get her on and listen to her story. So she's going to talk about that here in a minute. While we're getting ready for that, make sure you hit our like and subscribe button so you become part of the Guns Magazine family. And let's listen to this quick word from our sponsor, Riton Optics, and then we'll get started.
This is where we go to feel alive. This is primal. This is where we go to train. This is tactics. This is where we take it all the way. This is conquer. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is Right On.
Well, hey, Roy. Whoa, it's not Roy. It's Suzi. Suzi's sitting in the Roy chair. Oh, but there's Roy behind you. He's lurking.
He's monitoring, make sure I behave.
Well, he's going to have to monitor pretty hard, because I will say, I don't remember what we were talking about last time you were on the podcast, but you said a few things that turned me red-faced, and we got a lot of email about that. Everybody thought that was really funny. So I'm sure you'll probably do it to me again. But anyway, thank you for joining us. If folks don't know, you are the beautiful spouse of Roy Huntington, and you're also a retired San Diego cop and a shooter, a writer, and all that fun stuff. And now you guys live in your ranch in Missouri, and you do all kinds of stuff. You do pottery and jewelry and slap Roy around, but it's your stories that we have a great time
in some order thereof. Slapping might come first sometime.
Yes. Well, we were, Roy and I were texting. I can't remember texting or email, but it doesn't matter. He was sending me some pictures. And one of the pictures he sent was a very well done professional photo of you all dolled up, and you were on the red carpet at the Oscars. And I'm like, what's that all about? And apparently you've worked the Oscars on the red carpet as a private contractor. And I thought, I'm sure you've got some stories about that. So appreciate you joining us. So, okay, you were a San Diego cop and you worked a lot of special details. How did you end up being a private contractor on the red carpet?
It was one of those things where I knew somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah.
And they knew somebody who was the contracted company to provide security. Now, if you will, everybody that's outside the auditorium, they're all off-duty police officers.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not armed. You're not allowed to be armed. That's part of the contract.
Oh, really? Okay.
Correct. The only armed people are the SWAT guys inside. And, this is back in 2000. So that's 24 years ago. Venue has changed. Things have changed. Heightened security. So while I can say that's the way it was then, I have no clue how they handle it now.
Yeah. But even 24 years ago, the Oscars would be a high value target for anything from international terrorists to a nut job that wants to get some attention. And I would actually argue maybe a higher threat back then, because the Oscars have kind of gone downhill a little bit in terms of their public persona. But in general, what kind of threat did they brief you on? I mean, were you looking for tangos? Were you looking for nutty people with signs out front? What was the biggest threats?
So I was inside the entryway. I was right inside the entryway that they come in when they start the red carpet. And just to kind of give you an idea of what that is like, they're coming through and they're being shuffled down the red carpet. And there's bleachers and there's section where the photographers and the media is. And so as they're coming down the red carpet, they have their entourage of people who are making sure that their dress is just so. And the stars are, for the most part, looking up into the bleachers to see a friendly face of media. And that's why you see them kind of making a lot of these posed motions as they go down, because they're seeking out their friends who are part of the media. So inside, we're just looking for people that get in through the entryway that shouldn't be there, or the occasional nut job that is perhaps up in the stands being stupid.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they have to be not necessarily invited, but I think they have to pay to be there. Other than
really?
The media, I think so. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
And kind of like Secret Service, everybody had a little pin on to indicate that you were part of the security. Now, mind you, I was one female in a sea of male security. I was the only female that worked it that year.
No kidding? Only female?
And I don't even know, as security, I don't know if that was the first time or if just women didn't work it. But I happen to know the right guy, and he asked me if I wanted to work, and I said, hell yeah.
Well, that's actually kind of shocking. I would think that they would, mix the genders up because there's obviously male and female and all that. But I'm surprised. I guess not.
I think you're looking at a group of people that still put women as the, weaker sex. And, not to get in a debate over any of that. We are physiologically the weaker sex. Yeah. So I get it. And you do maybe have to lay hands on somebody.
Yeah.
You prefer not to. Some of the B-listers, D-listers that are there and didn't win, they've gotten tanked up. So you have to make sure that they behave themselves or get escorted away. Usually that's not happening at the beginning, though.
Yeah. Wow. So the procedure, as I understand it, is they show up in their limo and they get out on the red carpet and they do all the posing and smoochy facing. And I've seen video. There's a lot of handlers, right, around all these people, just making sure everything's perfect. And then they do their walk and turn in front of the stars, and then they go inside. But there's access control all the way along there, right?
Yes. There are velvet stanchions. They have to stay within certain areas, and come on, recently there was a thing where I think it was in France where there was an awards thing there, and a few of the stars were upset because there was a female that was pushing them along.
Oh, really?
Made news that, don't touch me, don't tell me what to do. But there is a process that they need to abide by, because you can't just sit there and hog all the attention while you're traipsing down the red carpet. They need to get people in.
Wow. Huh.
And so here's the other thing. So there's where the big stars walk, and then there's another area where the other people, attendees, walk. Yes.
The unwashed masses.
Yes. And it was my job to watch and make sure that nothing weird was happening. I was not there to stargaze.
And I got to say this, I'm making a value judgment here, but something tells me you really didn't care about stargazing at all, did you?
I didn't. If I recall, I was there the day before, because you had to be told what your job was going to be, where they were going to have you. And there was a little bit of I won't call it a kerfuffle, but there was a discussion about the men were expected to wear tuxedos or, very dressy suits.
Yeah.
I was told to wear an evening gown. Doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. I tried to...
Were you part of that kerfuffle?
Might have been. I explained that I had actually a very nice, appropriate Armani suit that I would be happy to show off.
Yeah. And
it would allow me to clip my radio, because we were all wearing radios. And in fact, that picture, I've got a headset on very similar to this.
Yeah.
And the back of my dress, it's it's strappy, so it's got a cross of straps in the back. And then I had clipped my radio to the waistband area, and I looked like this really skinny football coach who was ready to call in the next play. But they insisted, so that's what I wore.
I'll be darned. That's funny. So, okay, let's dish the dirt. So tell me some of the interesting things you saw or people did walking down your carpet.
Most everybody is very well behaved. I did notice that many of the actors were shorter, shorter and a little bit older than they would appear on screen.
Yeah.
This was the year too that the two gentlemen that did South Park showed up in their dresses. If you recall, one had a pink dress on and the other had a green dress on.
I hadn't until you just reminded me, but yes.
It was a lot of fun. I was actually going back and trying to remember who's who was there, and it's the year that, let's see, American Beauty won a bunch of Oscars, including Mr. Spacey for Best Actor, and I believe Hilary Swank won for Boys Don't Cry, Best Actress. And I gotta say, most of the people were they were beautifully coiffed, and they borrowed jewels and whatnot from Harry Winston, and big name jewelry makers. Yeah. And so you're in many ways blinded by a lot of the bedazzled people coming your way. Judi Dench, she's tiny.
Oh, really?
She's tiny. Beautiful lady, but she's tiny.
Okay, knowing having worked, events before, when the guys got out in their dresses, was there any radio traffic going on?
No, actually, surprisingly, all of that was kept very professional because there were a lot of eyes throughout this thing, and everybody's just, you're just a little bit on edge waiting for something stupid to happen.
Yeah.
And that didn't really come to fruition until after the show.
And what happened after the show?
So after the show, I was asked to work the governor's ball. Now, AMPAS, the American Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, they put on a big party after the awards. And they are only inviting the winners. Mm-hmm. And so if you are invited, that's a great thing. It's a feather in your cap. But this is where we start getting into the people being tanked up and the non-winners trying to sneak into the venue and have some FaceTime with the producer or director or whatever. And so that's where it got a little interesting for me because I was inside that venue too. And I have to say that they have some very strict rules about photography in there.
Oh, I bet.
No photography. Because they want the winners to be able to come down from their high and just enjoy their evening and dinner and not be bothered by a bunch of Klingons and looky-loos.
Yeah. So is there a lot of that because of the few broadcasts I watched? It seems like there's just a lot of people and people with signs and all that. Is it really that way, or I can't imagine there's a lot of spectator opportunities other than maybe right there at the drop off.
Correct. There's really not a lot of spectator stuff going on, but again, you're in an environment where everybody's ego is playing a big part of how they manage life.
Yeah.
And they're not accustomed to being fawned over or not being fawned over.
Yeah.
And really, I could have given a rat's ass about most of them. Okay, so my daughter said to me about working it. She said, "Oh, Mommy, you're so lucky you get to go work the Oscars." And I recall telling her, she was, I don't know, a tweenie at the time. I told her, I said, everybody has to put their outfit on the same way, I just don't have a bunch of dress pullers and hairdoers to keep me going through this whole thing.
Yeah.
I did it all on my own. And really, that's every single person that is there. The only thing that makes them any different is that they're in that Hollywood business.
Yeah.
And whatever. Whatever.
I was going to say, I'm sure you were entirely unimpressed with who people were. Did anybody try that? Do you know who I am?
Only in the governor's ball. Yeah. Don't you know who I am? Doesn't matter. Where's your ticket? You're not supposed to be here. Get out.
Okay, do you want to name any names or?
It's been so long. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I really don't remember. I did have problems with one person who was a man. Don't remember who he was. And he was heavily intoxicated. He was not a winner. He was not an invited guest. And they had me come over to escort him out. And things were starting to go a little sideways. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get in a fight in my really nice dress. This is going to be really awkward. But I did ask for somebody else, one of the LAPD guys who was a sergeant, but again, contracting. And I had him come over and I said, I need a little help over here. And so then we escorted him, one on either side, out of the venue.
Wow.
Thank God I didn't have to fight.
And that's the funny thing, because Suzi, I know you'd have fought at the drop of a hat if you had to.
I would have. I'm not afraid.
And I'm sure you would have taken care of him.
Been pissed off about my dress, but I would have fought.
Wow. That's pretty funny. And was he one of the ones, don't you know who I am?
He did try to play that don't you know who I am, and I didn't care.
He didn't care.
Mm-mm.
So I'm thinking back when I've worked special events, they always make a big deal about, like you said, there's a lot of people watching. You got to keep it on the down low. So was that like kind of your marching order of let's be as discreet as we can, while still keeping order?
Definitely. You would see people taking photographs at their tables, and you're not even allowed to take a photograph of your group at your table.
Yeah.
No photographs. And I think that's one of those things that as they're coming in, they probably passed a sign, and probably their invitation indicated, don't do that. So if you saw a photograph happening, then it was up to you to go over and remind them, no photographs. And from there, if the attitude starts, then it's, okay, I'll take that camera. I'll take that phone. I'd be happy to check it in over at the coat check. And if it got any worse than that, then you had the authority to say, okay, we're done here. Let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, these are people that aren't used to, they're used to telling people how it is, not being told how it is. So I bet there's a lot of culture clash there.
There's a bit of a culture clash. I have to say, I had a bit of a culture clash with a gal who was one of the organizers, I think it was, of the event. It might have even been, she was just specifically related to the governor's ball. But she just about came unglued when she saw me before any of the guests started to come in for the after party. And it was in one of those really big sort of clam type tent buildings, clamshell, and it was freezing in there because they had the air cranked up. And it was cold. I'm in a dress that has not a lot of coverage across my top, and I had brought a pashmina wrap with me. And I was just kind of waiting for stuff to get going, fully aware that when things got going, I was going to ditch the wrap. Well, she came over, and I think she only barely came up to my chest area, and she just lays into me.
About what?
My wrap.
Oh, well, that's the end of the world.
Yeah. Who do you think you are? You're not an invited guest here. You can't wear that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what did Suzi respond?
It was this close to just saying, okay, you know what? You. I wanted to leave, but I thought, no, I'm being paid good money here.
Yeah.
She's being a, uptight event host. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was my ass off until enough people were in there to suck up some of that cold air.
Yeah. Wow, that's funny.
But it was more of the event organizers, the people running the event, that were more problematic than the attendees. Yeah, I would say so. There's a lot riding on it.
Yeah.
Okay? You screw it up and you don't get the contract the next year.
Ah, okay. And you're talking big money there.
It's big money. So I get it. Doesn't mean you have to talk to me like I'm a village idiot.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in my own experience, again, I've worked everything from internationally renowned events to a lot of local events. And for some reason, people think if they're paying you as security, a few people think that they can treat you however they want. And
the janitor.
Yeah, exactly. And in one instance, we had an annual event that the organizer was just an awful person, and I was always the supervisor, so I had to interface with this person. I finally started taking my vacation that week every year just so I didn't have to, I'm going to call the mayor. Well, just call the mayor, okay? Whatever. I don't care. Whatever. But, yeah, sometimes... So I guess my tip is if anybody out there is organizing an event, don't be that guy or gal. Because
I think it's just the nature of the beast. They're under so much stress, right? And it's the old thing of Murphy's Law. If something is going to go wrong, it will.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. And it's like, okay, you blasted me. Big deal. We got the job done. It really was an interesting event. It really was. And that's when I learned, too, that there were people that, were hired to be seat fillers. So when this person is out of their seat inside the Oscars and is either going to be presenting or, somehow involved in the production, somebody comes in and sits in their seat. And, of course, they're all dressed to the nines, too.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I understand the purpose of it other than would somebody who's really not supposed to be sitting in that seat try to steal a seat, get closer to the stage? I really don't know.
So Tom Cruise would have somebody, probably diminutive, come in and take his seat while he's up talking or whatever.
I don't know. It was very interesting. And it's that picture that you have. So the backstory on how I even got that picture, because I took no pictures while I was there, because that's not what I was there for.
Right.
I have a jacket that I purchased, and I think I still have my credentialing from it. I mean, I don't even know 24 years later, why am I still holding on to this stuff?
Yeah.
Because I doubt my daughter gives a crap about it. But I didn't take any pictures. The following, I don't know, in the summertime, was it? Yes. Okay, so it was that same summer because the Oscars were in March. And then I went on a motorcycle ride with a group of other officers. We went from San Diego to Laughlin. And that's when they have the Laughlin motorcycle event every year. It's like a really tiny Sturgis. Tiny. And so we had all gone to Laughlin. And I was wandering that event with a friend of mine. And I'm standing in a line somewhere. And I hear from behind me, "Hey, weren't you at the Oscars?"
What?
And, my ears kind of perk up and I'm looking around. And this guy's pointing at me and he goes, "You, weren't you at the Oscars?" "Yeah, why?" He's the photographer.
Ah.
He was the photographer. He apparently worked for KTLA Channel 5 and was there in the media section. And I guess there was some talking amongst people around him about, who's the girl down there?
I'll be darned.
And so he took a whole bunch of pictures. And I said,
really?
Yeah, he told me about them. So I said, I would absolutely love it if you could send me a picture because I have absolutely nothing to to show that I was there, to prove that I was doing something there. And sure enough, that's how that picture happened.
Well, that's funny because Roy described it as you're glowering at whatever famous person was walking by you at that point.
So it would appear that I was sneering at Erykah Badu.
Okay.
Now, Erykah Badu was a singer, and she's just this beautiful woman. But, she wore her hair in a very high wrap. And I'm not saying this to be mean. When I saw that picture, she looks like Marge Simpson. Okay? That wrap just instantly reminded me of Marge Simpson.
Wow.
But I'm not, you know what? I had no recollection of even looking her way.
That's
just
funny.
Didn't even notice it. But that's the angle of that picture ended up making me look like I was sneering at her.
That's funny.
My nostrils were flared.
Well, I'm always trying to come up with good titles to get what we call SEO juice, so YouTube picks up the algorithms and all that, stuff. I'm thinking Erykah Badu is Marge Simpson. That might do it. So
it might. But she's a beautiful lady. She's a beautiful lady. But that, for some reason, that was the thought that popped into my head.
That's funny.
For random stuff.
As you're standing there, there's a certain face you put on, bored disinterest and look like you're looking. Was there ever a moment where you really had to bite your tongue or alternately not show that you were really getting pissed off?
I actually did not get pissed off at anything or anybody on the red carpet. I was just monitoring. I was just watching.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say I probably had my dead eyes or my enforcement face on. That's probably hence the sneer.
Yeah.
But no, there was really nobody to get upset with.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to see some of the beautiful clothes that I saw passing by.
Yeah.
But, it's just a glance.
I got to ask this, and this has nothing to do with guns and law enforcement and all this stuff, but I always picture in my head that especially the A-lister stars, they have all these like worker bees swarming around them, and
they do.
Were some of those folks, shall we say, interesting? I always picture like really outlandish, male and female, just
No,
they're just working.
They're just working. They have their people who are tidying up or freshening up their makeup, or a hair is out of place or something, or the dress is like bunching up, not doing what it's supposed to do. The women are attended to much more than the men, obviously, because there's just more that goes into them getting ready for that night.
Yeah.
And I believe they usually have their personal assistants with them, because there's almost always somebody there with an agenda, like a three-ring binder kind of a thing. So it was really interesting to see a lot of that happening, because, of course, you don't really see that on the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
All of that is very carefully somehow, not seen.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting, I have to say. It was one of the more memorable things that I got to do, which, of course, then led to my next gig with the same company. I got to work the DNC, I think, later that same year.
Oh,
DNC
really?
would have been in 2000, right?
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, that was another LA thing.
Oh, wow.
And I was, once again, contracting as private security for the DNC.
Wow. Well, we're going to have to
That's
talk about that.
another show.
Yeah. One of my favorite T-shirts was the last time it was in Chicago, which 8 years or 12 years ago. We're pretty close to Chicago, so we're up there quite a bit. And people were selling T-shirts, Chicago 1968. My granddaddy beat your granddaddy. Okay. That's
all right.
fun. So, well, cool. Well, I wasn't sure. I guess I was really hoping you were going to tell me a couple of A-listers got in a knife fight on the red carpet, but
God, I wish I could.
That would have been fun,
I wish I could
though,
tell
right?
you that. It would have been pretty exciting, but I'm sure that it would have been all over the media.
Yeah.
But actually, this is just more, what is the inner workings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And of course, there's been a lot of preparation ahead of time.
Yeah.
And of course, we prepared the day before, being told, do this, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, did anybody ever really breach a perimeter point? Because I know, again, working what I've worked is, it's highly unlikely if you've got, these kind of things do tend to attract, I'll say it, nutcases with all kinds of agendas that aren't necessarily looking to harm people so much as they want their 5 seconds in the sun. But generally, they're handled on the very outer perimeter of that. I assume the same thing with the Oscars.
I believe there was nothing of note that happened. All of us on the inside, all the men had their suits on and they were, talking to their wrist kind of a thing. And I was calling in the play from the red carpet. And then while the show was going on, we're just kind of hanging out, just as peripheral, just double, triple check and make sure that nobody's wandering around that doesn't look like they belong there.
Yeah.
I don't recall anybody getting inside. And of course, inside is where you have SWAT.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure if anybody got inside, man, we screwed up royally on the outside.
Exactly. I was wondering too, sitting here thinking about it, is a lot of those A-listers do have either a security agent or a security detail, depending on different things. How were they handled? Were they still nearby, but out of range of cameras, or were they not allowed? Or
I don't think they were allowed in.
Really?
I don't think they were allowed in because there were no guns allowed inside the event.
Right.
The only armed people were the LAPD SWAT guys. So, and they're going through magnetometers when they come in.
Even the stars?
Yeah. Oh, everybody.
No kidding. Okay.
Everybody goes through magnetometers. So,
well, for certain people, that's got to be weird not to have at least one protective agent at their side, because that, some famous and wealthy people have nothing.
right.
Some famous and wealthy people have a small army, and it depends on a lot of different things, and it's not necessarily their security level. But that's interesting that nobody was allowed to bring their person or people with them.
No, they're not allowed to. And if you consider it, how many people is this A-lister going to bring in with them?
Right.
You just can't have that many people in there.
Yeah.
And then again, I understand it. I mean, it didn't make me feel really particularly comfortable being unarmed, but oh my God, there were so many of us off duty that would have had absolutely no qualms jumping in and getting our clothes ripped apart just to do what we were supposed to do. I was fine with it. And it's very heavy security. It is very heavy security.
That would have been such a fantastic picture to go out over the AP wire. Suzi Huntington, her dress all torn up and, her heels in her hand and just wailing on some nut job that crashed the red carpet. That would have been a Lifetime Achievement Award for Suzi Huntington.
Something to tell the grandkids.
Well, we are going to have to schedule another one. We'll talk about what you did to the protesters, because I know in talking, I've never been to a national political convention, but in talking to journalists I know who have been, that's the nutshell right there. That's a lot of wacky, crazy people of every possible stripe showing up outside there. So we'll talk about that. Well, Suzi, thank you for joining us, and I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping,
I'm sorry.
That you had to wrestle a drunken Tom Cruise down or something, but Erykah Badu looking like Marge Simpson. That's a pretty good story. I'll have to somehow work that into the description.
I apologize, Erykah. She's a beautiful lady.
Yeah, well, she probably won't be watching the Guns Magazine podcast. Certainly not after this one. But Suzi, as always, it's a lot of fun. You always get a lot of reader comment and reader email. So look forward to this one. So thanks again.
Thanks, Brent.
Well, it's always fun and entertaining to talk to Suzi Huntington, and I guess we'll have an upcoming episode where we'll be talking to her about who she had to rough up at the DNC convention. Well, before we go, I would like to remind you of a couple of things. First and foremost, please hit the like and subscribe button so you become part of the Guns Magazine family, and you'll be notified anytime we have some new stuff here at the FMG Publications YouTube channel. So hit the like and subscribe. Make sure you also check out our websites. That would be Guns Magazine at gunsmagazine.com, American Handgunner Magazine at americanhandgunner.com, and americancop.com. There's also our sponsor we would ask you to check out, Riton Optics at ritonoptics.com. The Riton Optics PRD3 and MPRD3 give shooters the flexibility and affordable performance they need. As a special bonus to the Guns Magazine podcast audience, if you go to ritonoptics.com and enter GUNS24 at checkout, you get an additional 15% off. That's ritonoptics.com. Enter the code GUNS24 and get that 15%. Well, that's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. On behalf of everybody who works so hard here at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, reminding you yet again, now get out there and get shooting.